I remember the day well in 2016 when I realized that the aircraft model that I had just ordered a few days before was the model based upon an aircraft that had crashed into the Mediterranean Sea, resulting in the loss of all souls on board, which led me to cancel my review of that model. But now that several years have passed, I feel like there is enough distance to take a closer look at this model. With that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where we today will take a closer look at an Airbus A320-200 of EgyptAir. At the front of the box we have a cutout so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside, and on top of the box we have the EgyptAir branding. On the back side of the box we then have an image of the aircraft in real life. We're provided with a web link by Herpa Wings, which unfortunately does not work anymore, and we can see it is a limited edition. So here she is, the Airbus A320-200 in the current standard livery of EgyptAir. As mentioned in the intro of the video, the topic around this aircraft, or the aircraft that this model is based upon, is rather touchy. So I will not go further into that, and I hope that people will respect that and also be respectful in the comments below. But if you want to know more about the story of the aircraft in real life, then I've left a few links in the description of the video. And with that, let's focus on the aircraft model in front of us to see what it actually has to offer. And we start our tour around this aircraft model that was produced by Herpa Wings in 2014 with a look at the tail section, where we on the vertical stabilizer have the EgyptAir branding. On the fuselage, we then have the aircraft type specification, the Egyptian flag, the web address of the airline, and the full registration code of the aircraft. Towards the very tail of the aircraft, we do also have a bit of detailing around the APU exhaust. At the front of the aircraft and across the fuselage, we then find the writing of EgyptAir and the EgyptAir branding. We do also have a Star Alliance logo, of which the airline is a member. The cockpit section itself doesn't offer us too many details. The only thing we find here are the cockpit windows and the window wipers that have been printed on. The engine nacelles have been kept in all white, just as most of the fuselage, but we do have the silver leading edge printed on. But hold on, that's not entirely correct, because if we look at the other side, we can see we have the name of the airline written onto the engine nacelles in Egyptian Arabic. On the other side, this has been printed onto the inner side of the nacelle, and that's simply because Herpa has mounted these engines incorrectly. Something to look out for in case you're interested in this model. The physical detailing of the engines is overall alright, although we have seen it better in more recent releases. If we then take a look at the fuselage just above the wings, we see we have the emergency exits printed on, which leads us straight to the wings, which we should also take a closer look at. And starting off with the top side, we can see the different flaps, slats and spoilers have been carved out rather nicely. We do also have the emergency exit markings printed on, as well as some different shades of grey for additional detailing. On the underside of the wing, we find the full registration code of the aircraft once again. The wings, of course, also have wingtip fences, although they don't look nearly as nice as with more current releases, but overall it is still alright. The landing gear on this aircraft model is the standard landing gear that Herpa used back in 2014 for all their Airbus A320 family aircraft models, which is a good thing because it looks much nicer than any current Herpa Wings releases. Especially the front landing gear, when it comes to the physical detailing, looks much better, although I am still missing some printed details. It should, however, also be mentioned that with this landing gear, the A320 can be a little bit tail heavy. It very much depends on how exactly the landing gear has been mounted to the aircraft. It's something to look out for, again, if you should be interested in this aircraft model, as it does not affect all models of this series. And then last but not least, we do also have the doors to the cargo compartments printed on here in the back of the aircraft and here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Airbus A320-200 in the current standard livery of EgyptAir from Herpa Wings in scale 1 to 500, and what can we say about this aircraft model? Overall, I actually quite like this aircraft model, and when we look at it closely we will realize that it actually isn't that far behind anything that Herpa would release today. In some places it's actually superior. For example, when it comes to the fuselage, or specifically when it comes to the mold, or the landing gear for that matter, that looks much better than anything that Herpa currently releases, in my opinion. Where the aircraft model lags a little bit behind are the wingtip fences. They do look better in more recent releases. The engines that have been mounted incorrectly, well, that's a shame, but that could happen even today with Herpa. The biggest issue with the aircraft model is of course that it is rather tail heavy and tends to tip over. This is something we have seen throughout the time with Herpa Wings, although I must admit that with recent releases that doesn't seem to be an issue anymore. Ultimately, this is just another Herpa Wings model, but we can't run away from the fact that the aircraft this model is based upon had a tragic ending, which might make some people feel uneasy or uncomfortable having such a model in one's collection. So I would be lying if I was saying that I didn't hope that Herpa would make a new version of this aircraft, or maybe an A320neo of EgyptAir in the future. Now with that, we have reached the end of today's episode. If you have enjoyed this video, then don't forget to leave a like, that would be very much appreciated. And of course, if you are new around here, why not hit subscribe? That would be absolutely awesome. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.